And we are officially live. Hello everyone, my name is Matt.
I'm Wes.
And you have joined us for our not getting started workshop. That's what I'm used to saying. It's our giving screen masterclass. I'm sorry. We're really excited to show you the giving screen, teach you how to use it to its fullest potential. We're going to cover everything like tracking giving, generating reports like your giving statements and some other ones too, and also creating fundraising campaigns and a lot more. But before we do that, we have a few things we want to share with you that you can use after this workshop is over. Wes, tell them about the Facebook group.
Yes, so our Facebook group is such a great resource. If you are on Facebook, you should totally join this group just because it gives you the opportunity to talk to other ChurchTrac users just like yourself. And it's a place where people can actually help each other with the software, explore different ideas of how to use it. We even get some of our feature ideas for the software itself from people in our Facebook group. So.
It's a great group. We also have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. We're actually broadcasting this live stream to that channel right now, and it'll remain there for you to go back and watch later once this is over. We have almost 200 videos on that channel that you can watch that have like instructional videos on how to use ChurchTrac, but also webinars like this one, and then other videos, other fun stuff we've been making that we've been working on over the past year or so. So definitely subscribe to that YouTube channel whenever this is over. And Wes, go ahead and drop links into the chat to the Facebook group and to the YouTube channel. Just click on those links in the chat. That way it'll open up for you on another window and it'll be waiting for you there so that you can subscribe and have everything waiting for you when you're done. Also, one last thing, whenever you're in your ChurchTrac account, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, there's this orange help button. I'll zoom in just to make sure if you're watching this on your smartphone, you can see this too. We want to be inclusive of everybody. So there's the orange help button. If I click it, this little drop-down window appears, and you can either go to the user guide, which is the show all help topics button, or you can click the ask us a question button, which opens up a support ticket from within your account. So you can always reach the support team with any questions that you have, no matter what. All right. Now that we've done that little bit of housekeeping, go ahead and let us know in the chat where you are in your ChurchTrac journey on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being you just created your account today and you're just now getting your feet wet in the account, or a 10 where you're such a pro that you could literally take my job. Let us know in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10 where you are on your ChurchTrac journey, especially with the giving screen, because that's what we're focusing on today. So let us know in the chat. We'd love to hear.
And we're going to keep the chat wide open during this entire live stream. Obviously, we have a lot of content that we're going to be covering, so we won't be like attending to it as much during that time when we go through all this content. But at the very end, we're going to dedicate time of Q&A, and we're going to answer any questions you have regarding ChurchTrac giving.
Yep. So Chris, you say you're a 7. All right, that means you're doing really well. Bill, you're a 1. Okay. Valerie, an 8. Okay, you're coming in strong. There's a lot of you answering. Dolores Brown, a 6 or a 7. Susan is a 1. Luann is a 5. Liz is a 5 or a 6. Definitely jump in the chat anytime. Ask your questions as we go along, like Wes said. We won't be answering them too intensively, but we'll keep an eye on them and we'll have some time at the end to answer them if we miss them. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in though and not waste any more time. We're talking today about the giving screen. This is where you enter all of your donations at your church. This is where you're going to record all of your tithes and offerings and any other special donations. The accounting screen is where you do the work of recording your expenses and any other income. So that's not, like, you won't record that stuff here on the giving screen. This is just for donations. Just to give you a quick run through of what's here, this contributions tab, this first screen here, is where you'll actually do the work of recording those donations. But there's also a reports tab. We'll talk in more detail about this a little bit later, but this is where you'll find your contribution statement and a lot of other reports here as well. The pledges tab is where you can create a pledge campaign and set everything up to record the fundraising that you're doing at your church. The categories tab is where you list all of your income categories. It's sort of like a chart of accounts, but this is just for the income side of that. And then online giving is where the online giving tab is where you can set up an online giving link with Stripe, have that integrated with ChurchTrac so you can take donations online and have it recorded in your ChurchTrac account nice and easy. We'll do a deep dive into all these features, so just buckle up. We're going to go into more detail here in just a moment. But first, Wes, we have to talk about setting everything up.
Yes, and so setup is so key in the giving screen, just because you want to have everything set up ahead of time, so when you go to start entering all of your contributions for your people, tracking all your giving, handling all those pledges, you're not having to go back and forth and like create categories and add people and stuff. And so let's talk about like the things you want to do first in your setup. So the first thing I always recommend, adding your people first.
Yes.
Which this is beyond just like the first thing you should do in the giving screen, but this is like the first thing you should do in ChurchTrac itself.
Yes, absolutely. Because the church is all about people. You got to have your member information added there first, because all donations in ChurchTrac have to be assigned to a person. And we'll even talk about like cash donations and how that works as well. So definitely make sure you've got your members added first.
And part of the reason why we recommend this is because when you're adding those contributions, having to go and like put in someone's data and everything when you're kind of in the mindset of just wanting to quickly plug in contributions, it just makes you take a whole lot more time. And so it's just much easier to have your people's information added in first. Plus you want to have their information added in first, because ChurchTrac is about so much more than just tracking people's giving. It's about being able to really track discipleship and disciple your people, communicate with your people. And so that's why we always say add your people first in ChurchTrac. That's the crucial part of the giving setup as well. Then going past the people, your categories. So in ChurchTrac, if you're new to how we do things here, the categories, this really specifies your income. If you're using ChurchTrac accounting, this also specifies all your expenses. But you want to have your different categories set up. And so if you have different areas in which you want to enable your people to donate to, such as like the children's ministry perhaps, or a building campaign, or a love offering, missions, that sort of thing. So you want to go ahead, get with your team, think about the different categories you want to create. Also utilize those subcategories. A great example is missions. Like you don't need to have like a whole separate category for evangelism and foreign missions and local missions. Like this can all be a part of your missions income category, and you can create subcategories for those.
Keeps things organized.
Absolutely. And when you're creating those categories, you have the ability to also assign category numbers. You can say if you want it to be tax deductible, yes or no, which if this is donation, then yes, it's going to be tax deductible. And then also this is where you enable those categories for online giving. I err on the side of caution in terms of like how many you enable. You really only want to enable the ones you need to enable, because you don't want your people to have the ability, as we talk about online giving later, where they have 20 different things they can pick from. You want to kind of limit it to like general offerings, missions, the building fund, stuff like that.
Well, it's not like there's a one-size-fits-all thing that you want it to be limited to. It's more just you as a church need to know like the 4 or 5 things to prioritize, whatever that is, and just have those options listed and not literally everything. Because it almost like creates that analysis paralysis of not knowing which to choose, and it actually may discourage some people from donating.
Now, in terms of a couple settings I want to cover, so in ChurchTrac itself, go to the settings screen, and then under settings, you're going to go to admin settings, go to screen options. And under your screen options, you have the giving tab there. And so just get familiar with this, because there's certain options here that are going to apply to some churches. Some churches may want to show the envelope number and member number field, so you can toggle these different things, yes or no. You can also toggle where your online giving fee category is, which one that is. So just get familiar with what those different toggles are and where they are located on your admin settings. The other thing I do want to mention on the settings and admin settings, there's an option called report settings.
There it is. I work here, and it took me a second to find it.
Well, we stare at computer screens all day, and so the words all blend together. But report settings is a really big one, just because this is where contribution statement options live. Because you want, as we talk about contribution statements later, those giving statements, being able to customize your header and your footer and the email body, stuff like that. This is where you do that. So just wanted to quickly mention that. Now, online giving and the overall setup for that, we're going to talk about online giving a little later, so hold tight on that. But that is something you do want to set up ahead of time for your church as well.
Yes. Now, let's talk about actually entering contributions, because that's what you signed up for. That's what the entry fee was. No, I'm kidding. This is totally free. This is what you paid for, right? Let's talk about actually recording donations. So in the chat, let me know how you're entering contributions and receiving that information beyond like your online giving platform. Do you take donations by cash, by check? Are there other platforms like Cash App and Venmo, those payer-to-payer or P2P platforms that you're using? Let us know in the chat how exactly your church typically takes in donations. I talk to a lot of churches that they've never used online giving, so it's all cash and check. Yeah. And then others, there's a few leaders that I've talked to that have managed to transition almost all of their church over to digital just to make things really streamlined for themselves.
Yes, and there are a lot of, my church is an example of one where the majority of our giving still comes from check.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of our donors, they just make that a process. A lot of them actually just have their bank automatically send a check. So it just
that's really kind of the old school recurring donations.
It is. It's the OG of recurring donations.
Yeah, perfect. I see, Carl, cash and check, sharing cash and check and online, right? Or cash and check for now, Bobby, cash, checks, and online. So cash and check is definitely very well represented today. And that's typical. That's typical of a lot of churches still. Even with these digital options, a lot of churches are still giving tangibly or receiving donations tangibly rather than digitally. All right, so for entering contributions, the process is extremely simple. All I have to do, once I've got all my member information added in, again, that's step one, but to actually record a donation, step one is click the add button right below this list of all these batch dates, and then select a date that somebody donated. Now, obviously, you probably won't need to actually select a date because most of you are going to be sitting down to record the donations the day of, like Sunday morning. So we'll just pretend like right now it's Sunday morning, so I'll have the 19th highlighted, and I'll select Add Date. And in the top right-hand corner, we'll select the Add Contributions button and start typing in the name of one of the members of the church that made a donation. So we'll see, we'll use Jamie Ableton as an example. Let's say she gave just a flat $100. It's a nice round number. And in the category drop-down menu, this is why setting up categories first before entering any donations is so important. Because when you're entering donations, you can select from this list of categories to label the donation according to the donor's intended purpose. So if it's just their regular offerings, we'll leave that here. But let's say she actually gave like a love offering. I could highlight that. I could leave a note in the memo line if there's any other notes that I need to leave about this. And then there's a plus sign all the way to the right. I'll zoom in again just in case you're on a small screen. But if I click that plus sign, I can actually itemize her donation. So let's say she actually did give $100, that's to her regular general offerings, but she gave an additional $50 to something particular, like we were talking about missions earlier. Maybe a missionary came and spoke at the church and she wants to give a little bit to that missionary. So that's how you split up donations across multiple different donation opportunities. Then I can say exactly how she gave. If she gives by check, I can enter the check number, click Add this contribution, and I am done with Jamie's donation. Now all I have to do is start on the next donor and just click on or select their name. John Hawley is here and he's giving $250, and just move through the donation that way. That's all it takes to record donations manually in ChurchTrac. Now, what about cash donations?
Everybody's blown us up in the chat about cash
Oh,
donations.
really?
Yeah. It's pretty easy.
Yes.
We'll show you.
Yeah, so a cash donation, and by cash donation, I don't mean just cash in an envelope. Like, let's say that John Hawley, I signed the donation to him, I said it was cash. Let's say he dropped that in an envelope. But for unassigned donors, like anonymous donors, where they just drop cash in the offering plate, it's a loose offering, you can't assign it to anybody. What we recommend you do is on the people screen, you create a fake person. You can name that person whatever makes sense that makes it easy for you to understand the purpose of this fake person. At this church, for this account, what they did is they just created a person named Cash Offerings. And any unassigned donation or any loose donation is assigned to that person. So we'll say $1,234 were recorded for that day.
It's a good Sunday.
Yeah. We'll put it in the general offerings because there's not any other reason or assignment for it. Say it's cash, add this contribution, and I'm done with all the loose offerings at this church. So that's what we recommend you do is you go ahead on the people screen, create a fake person. Because in ChurchTrac, every donation has to be assigned to a person. So for donations that can't be assigned to anybody like cash offerings, You just create a fake person for that and assign all those loose donations to that person. One point that I have to make when recording donations, and this is kind of a, I don't know if niche is the right word, but it's just a very unique circumstance, is in-kind donations.
Well, it's not really unique because every church gets in-kind donations in some form or fashion.
Right, but it's like, it's not a weekly thing, it's not an all-the-time thing. In ChurchTrac, and this isn't just something that's like a ChurchTrac rule, this is how every church has to record in-kind donations, period, across the board, no matter what platform you're using, no matter what state you're in, no matter what was donated. If it's a tangible thing or a service, like canned goods or an electrician rewired something.
Couch, or
a couch for the youth room. Whenever you're recording that donation, enter the person's name. We'll use Ron Swanson as an example. Let's say he gave a couch for the youth room, like Wes's example. When entering the amount, you have to enter it as $0. Have to enter it as $0. It's not up to the church to know or record the market value of whatever was just donated. It's up to the donor to keep track of that. You enter it as $0. What we recommend, though, is you do create a category for in-kind donations. You don't need to create a unique category or even subcategory for different kinds of in-kind donations, because that's not what matters. Just have a category to label it as an in-kind donation. It is tax deductible, and you can leave a little note in the memo line, couch for youth room or something like that, just to be a little more particular about what that donation was. So add this contribution and it's done. That's what I recommend that you do for in-kind donations. Now, quick question. Do you all have multiple weeks or months of donations that you're wanting to record in your ChurchTrac account right now? Would you like to have it all dumped into your account all at once? Let us know in the chat, because the good news is you actually can record all donations all at once by an import. Whenever you create a batch, and we'll use this batch we just created as an example. I've already got it highlighted. All I have to do is click the Actions button, and there's an Import Contributions option in this little pop-up menu. If you have all of your donations recorded on another platform, you can export it, or if you've been recording it on a spreadsheet, like I know a lot of churches have been doing, some of you probably have, you can just drag and drop that spreadsheet into this little box here at the bottom, and we'll record all those donations and add it to your ChurchTrac account in one step. It's the easiest way to get caught up on all your past donations.
I want to reiterate how big of a deal this is, because if your church has a lot of giving records on an Excel sheet or something of that nature, and you want to hurry and get that into ChurchTrac, well, you can do it in just a few seconds if you've already got that Excel sheet, or if you're coming from another program like Tidely or something. Makes it really easy.
Now, if you're doing it manually, like if you've been recording donations on your own spreadsheet, there is a link here at the top for our instructions for how that needs to be formatted. It's pretty simple, though. Just make sure you read that before you try to do the import. A couple more things I want to knock out. You can lock batches. So whenever you're done recording all the donations for a day and you've double-checked everything and triple-checked everything, you can, in the Actions pop-up menu, lock that batch. Where is it? There it is at the very bottom, to lock that batch. That way transactions and donations can't be altered retroactively. Just keeps everything transparent. And just make sure that nothing fishy is happening behind the scenes. Not that that's happening at your church, but you just got to take that precaution.
And one thing I do want to point out, because a lot of churches, they are using accounting. If you're using accounting in ChurchTrac, there's a feature on the giving screen, and it is on that Actions button. And that gives you the ability to put a deposit over to the accounting screen.
Yes.
This is something pretty common we run into where churches are like, why is our accounting screen going in the negative? Well, it's because you're not actually creating the deposit of money that you received on your donations to go to the accounting screen. And so that's funny, that couch for the youth room, that would be one that I would uncheck.
Yes,
you still could add it, it just would be $0 amount on the accounting screen. Kind of funny. But yeah, so that's a big thing we come across all the time. Now, all right, Matt, entering donations, we've covered a whole gamut of just
doing
ways
it manually,
to do it.
importing it, how to do in-kind donations, but there's an even easier way.
The easiest way to enter donations.
And that's having your members do it through online giving. By setting up online giving, whenever a donor makes a donation through that donation portal, that donation, I've just said the word donation like 4 times in 2 seconds, gets automatically added to your ChurchTrac account for you. You don't have to record it yourself at all. It makes it really quick and simple. To set this up, if you haven't done this yet in your account, go to the Online Giving tab at the very top of the screen, Your screen will look a little bit different than this. This already has like the URL for this donation portal. Your screen will have a couple paragraphs about Stripe, and then a button at the bottom that says add or create a Stripe account. If you click that button, you just fill out a quick form, tell Stripe some very basic information about your church, and you're ready to go. You could literally be taking donations online in like 15 minutes.
It's pretty quick. Just make sure you have all the info you need ahead of time to give Stripe, like your EIN, all that.
Yeah. Now, the way online giving works in ChurchTrac is it's connected through Church Connect, and I actually have a phone here with this church's Connect account linked. So I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like and how it works in Church Connect. So all a donor has to do is go to your Church Connect page, and then this church already has a card here that members can just tap to access online giving, but a donor can also log into their account in Church Connect, tap the menu button in the top left corner, and then select online giving. This takes them to the online giving portal, and it's really easy to make a donation. All I have to do as a church member is just enter the amount I want to give, select the category I want to make a donation to. We'll just say it's general offerings. And what's really cool and great and awesome, and you should totally recommend this to all of your members, is they can select the option to make a recurring donation.
Yes.
So they can set it and forget it. That way your church has repeated income, and it's really simple to budget. And then they can enter their payment source. And what's really cool is they can also choose to cover the fee, that transaction fee for that donation. And that brings me to the fees for Stripe. Stripe charges, and Wes will put this in the chat, Stripe charges 2.2% plus 30 cents for credit and debit card transactions. That's at least their nonprofit discount rate. So if you qualify for that discount, that's the rate for credit and debit card transactions. They also only charge 25-cent flat rate for ACH donations. That's just a direct bank-to-bank transfer without using a card. That's just 25-cent flat rate at their nonprofit rate. We highly recommend that if you get that discount, you promote that option to your members. So promote ACH and recurring donations, just to make it really simple for both your church and your donors.
In the United States, ACH is available. It's not available in Canada or other countries, but I just want to stress how much money your church can save by utilizing ACH and just encouraging your donors to give with ACH as opposed to credit card. Not that credit card's bad. It's either way, it's good to get donations coming in online. But ACH with that 25-cent flat rate, you're saving on average about $80 per donor per year in fees when you compare the credit card fees, which are still really, really good. But when you compare that to ACH, it's a pretty big difference. And so if you're talking, a dozen donors, Matt, that's like $1,000 a year basically your church is saving. If we're talking a few dozen donors or maybe a few hundred donors, I mean, a church can realistically save thousands. I was talking to a church a couple months ago saving probably about over $10,000 a year in online giving fees because they got the majority of their congregation to give with ACH.
With ACH.
And you know how it was pretty wild. You know how they got their people to give with ACH?
How?
You just asked them.
They just told them, this is what we want you to do?
Yeah, they just announced it and said, hey, this is how you give online to our church. And if you give with ACH, it actually saves our church a lot of money. And because when you save your church a lot of money, it means we can do more ministry. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, frankly, we recommend that not only do you promote these options to your members, but you just keep things very simple. That's actually what this promoting does, is it gives members a direct line of we know exactly what the church wants us to do, rather than say, hey, you can give by Cash App, and you can give by Venmo, and you can give by Zelle, and you can give by ChurchTrac Online Giving, and you can give by cash, and you can give by check. It gets honestly a little overwhelming, and members, I think, benefit from just knowing the one thing that you want them to do. So give them that option, let them know, hey, we prefer that you give by this route, and cut out some of the other noise to simplify everything for both the church and for the members. Yeah. I mean, you had a point about how you've not even ever seen a church that saw a decrease in online, in overall giving. In
my 6 years of working with hundreds of churches one-on-one, I've never once spoken to a church that wasn't using online giving and then started using online giving and saw a decrease in overall donations because of the fees and stuff. Because that's one of the common myths is, oh man, well, even if you do have all your donations come with credit card, that's 2%, 3% of our donations, so we're going to miss out on 3% of our donations. No, that math doesn't add up.
Well, it would, but with something like recurring donations, that overcomes that.
Yes.
Because that means people are donating whether or not they're actually making it to your church, whether they're sick or out of town.
They go out of
like
town,
that.
they're going on their summer vacation, they're still donating to church even though they're not there on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're there in spirit.
Yeah. Now, one last thing I want to show you in Church Connect. Our video guy is like clicking furiously just to make sure he shows you this. In the top left-hand corner, there's also that menu button. If I tap that menu button, boop, that gives me the option to see the menu for the ChurchTrac account. I can then go to my giving history.
And you'll have to re-show that, Matt.
Yep. So if I go back to that donation portal or just back to the main screen, I'll tap the menu button in the top left corner, go to my giving history. Your members can actually see all their past donations, whether that was done online or you recorded it manually because it was a cash donation. That's all here. And they can also produce their own contribution statement any time of year from within the Church Connect account. I just wanted to show that to you, just because, one, it's related to giving, but also because it's awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of church leaders, whenever I show that to them in our like one-on-one workshops I do with them, they go, I can't believe it, this is going to be so great in January. They love it.
Well, my church is fully switched to that.
Really?
Yes, we actually sent out an email during the last time when we were giving out contribution statements, and that email was basically, hey, here's how you go online to our app to download the app, and you can view your contribution statement. If you need a hard copy, just let us know and we'll be more than happy to provide you one or email you one. So we made that switch, and most churches are making that switch as we speak. So.
Well, it's just easier on the staff to not have to manage all the printing and folding and envelopes and stamping and getting it out, and then hearing from people that I didn't get it. Well, did you update your address? No. Okay, well that's your fault. Just go to the app. That's all you have to tell anybody anymore.
But when it comes to reporting in ChurchTrac, we have made it really easy. So let's cover some of the giving reporting. More specifically, we're going to talk about contribution statements because that is the biggest one. So when it comes to getting to your reports in the giving screen, you go to your giving screen, you go to that reports tab. It's staring you right in front of your face. And then you have your start date and your end date. This is so important. Sometimes I see churches forget to select these. So just make sure you picked your right start date and end date for the report that you need to generate. Yep. I love that I can just click the arrow all the way to the right to get to a certain date, and so if I just want to skip to the end of the year, I can do that. And the contribution statement, that's the first one that's selected. Now as you go through these reports, if you select different ones, you'll see they highlight the report and have options to for that report. But I just want to show off the contribution statement just because that's such a big one. That report you can generate for every family or every individual. I work with a lot of churches that they want one for every family, but then some churches want one for every individual because they want to be able to specify it like that. You can include a contribution statement to people who gave a penny or more, or it can be $50 or more, $100 or more. Default is a penny or more. Every church kind of does that. And then you can include a details section. You can include a pledge campaign summary, which we'll talk about more. And then you just click that view report and you're done. Every contribution statement for every single person is generated. I've worked with churches, Matt, that were using Excel to do this.
Yes,
and they would spend a few hours generating contribution statements with a hodgepodge of Excel sheets. This just did it in a few seconds.
Yeah. Just with a click of the mouse, and that was done.
Now, Heritage is already skipping to the next thing that I was going to mention. I want to talk about emailing because at the end of the day, this is where everything's moving to. I predict in 5 years, and it may not even be that long, it may be quicker, that the norm for all churches is going to be digital contribution statements.
Go green.
Go green, just being able to send out all of them via email. It saves church money, plus it's way easier, it's way quicker.
Yeah.
So to do that, go to your people screen in ChurchTrac, because this lives in your reports tab on the people screen. Because it's part of your people reports and how we've designed it. But you go to the general reports in the people screen, and we have the contribution statement at the bottom there. And there, you actually have the option to print there as well. It's kind of like a redundancy we put in, but you can email that contribution statement. And you just have to make sure that you have the email address on file for those people that you want to send your contribution statement to.
Yeah.
But you can go ahead and send that contribution. You click send email, it's done. You've sent that email, and you also get a report showing the people that did not receive it, which is really nice. So,
yeah, it'll show you who doesn't have an email on file and whose email bounced, so that you know who to update.
Yes.
And also just who didn't receive it, and you can send it to them some other way.
Yeah. So that's just the quick overview and reports. We have a lot of other different giving reports, by the way, on the giving screen. And one thing I do want to point out that I think is so great, just because if you're like me, maybe you're like Wes, we like to get real crazy with our reports, and we like to create different types of charts and stuff with Excel, or maybe you throw it in Google Sheets. Most of our reports you can export to CSV. And I like that just because I'm that way. So if you're that kind of person, you're a power user, you want to do your own types of reports and really put your own special sugar and spice and everything nice on there, well, you can do that. Just export it out and go from there.
All right, now we need to talk about pledges. In ChurchTrac, you're able to create a whole fundraising campaign and track your church's progress and your individual donors' progress toward the overall goal. That's done under the Pledges tab at the very top of the screen. Now, I've already created a whole campaign. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to take you all through the process of creating a campaign from scratch. So to do this, all you have to do is click the Add button at the very top of the screen. Give your campaign a name. So we'll just call this one the 2024 campaign. So let's pretend like this is the beginning of the year, and we want to take pledges for the entire year. So I'll click OK. What I can do now at the very top is I can select a category for this pledge campaign. Do not use your regular offerings category for this, because that means whenever anyone makes any old donation, it'll be added to this pledge summary. What we recommend you do, and that's not what we recommend you do, what you need to do is create a unique category just for this pledge campaign. This church has already done that. They just went ahead and named it the 2024 Pledge Campaign category. That way it matches the campaign name itself, just to make it easy. And then you'll select the campaign end date, so create a deadline. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and jump ahead to December, select the final day. So there we go. December 31st, 2024 is the end of this pledge campaign. Now all I have to do to set this up, once I've got the category and the deadline, is just enter the names of the people who are going to be participating in this pledge campaign. So we'll use Jamie as an example. There we go. She's pledged to do, let's say, $6,000. Add pledge. Now I can enter the next name. So we'll use Ron. We were looking at Ron earlier, so let's do Ron Swanson again. He's going to do $12,000. Add pledge, and on down the line. We can continue doing this for as long as we need to, just to have a whole list of people. That's how you create a pledge campaign and get that started. And you'll notice here that there is a column for the total amount that they pledged, the amount that the church has received so far, and the amount that remains that they haven't donated yet. So whenever someone makes a donation now toward their pledge, all you have to do on that main contributions tab is start a new recording of a new donation, click the add button. I'll use today's date as an example. Let's just say somebody made a donation online toward this campaign. I'll click add date, click add contributions in the top right hand corner. This works just like recording any other donation. So we'll use Jamie as an example again. Jamie, I'll say she gave $75 toward her pledge. And now I have to choose that category here that I used for that pledge campaign. So there's the 2024 pledge campaign. I can leave a little note if I need to, say how she gave, click add this contribution, and I'm done recording her pledged donation. When I click close, it's listed here just like any other donation, but if I go back to that main pledges tab and select that campaign again, boom, there's $75 for Jamie. Emily also has $150. It's because I was testing this out earlier. So that's why she already has a donation listed there, even though I didn't record one just now. But there's Jamie's donation that we just recorded, $75, with $5,925 remaining. So that's how you track your pledge campaigns throughout the year. You just create the campaign, you create a category that's unique to that campaign and assign it here, select the end date, and then just add the donors and use that category as they make their donations. It's very fast and simple.
Yeah, and anytime you want to see exactly who gave your pledge, I just want to reinforce, you go to that pledge screen, that pledges tab, and you select that particular campaign. And just to reinforce, like, every campaign has its own unique category. Yes. And so yes, you do need to create a specific category for a specific pledge, so that way you can keep track of your pledges. There are no like sub pledges or like subcategories with that. Like, yes, you can use a subcategory for a pledge, but there is no deeper level than a subcategory. You have category and then subcategory.
Yeah. Joanne Taylor just asked, do the pledged gifts show up on the giving statement along with other giving categories? And the answer is yes. If you remember back in that reports tab, when you produce the contribution statement, you have the option to include the pledge campaign summary.
I love that.
Yeah. So it by default, it doesn't show the pledge donations, but you can include that just by checking that box, just to answer that question for Joanne. All right, also within the pledge campaign itself, if I go back to that main pledges tab, select that pledge campaign, there is also an overview report that'll show you basically what that list was showing you just a second ago, but it just gives you an overview of everything. But also there's that individual pledge statement with a little more detail per donor. So that's something that you can produce as well if you want to produce that pledge campaign report separately from the contribution statements.
Yeah. Now, this next feature we're about to talk about kind of brings a lot of things in the software together. And this is actually, I would argue, the most advanced feature in all of ChurchTrac. And that is automations.
Automations.
Let me know in the chat, have you created any automations in the software yet? Beyond the giving screen, but just have you created any people screen automations? Have you created any automations for accounting? I'd just be kind of curious to see. But I want to talk about giving automations. So in ChurchTrac, go to Settings, and then go to your Automations tab. If you don't see this tab, it might be because you're on an older plan and you do need to upgrade. This is only available on the most current subscription plans in ChurchTrac. But here is where I can create an automation. And an automation basically is a set of one or more actions that are set to run on a schedule or in response to a trigger. Mm-hmm. And so I want to create an automation here, and let's just call this automation, Matt, like giving report.
Okay.
It's gonna be super generic. And this is an application automation. And I don't want to go into great detail of like what automations are and stuff, because we have great videos that explain that. But anytime you're wanting to do reports and stuff based on the giving screen, it's going to be an application automation. And so I can create this automation. And so I want to go ahead and start building it out. And so the first thing is to add a new action. This is like what is going to happen. And I want to email a giving screen report. And then I can go ahead, select and configure, and then I can choose the report that I want to email. And so I can have maybe the giving history report or maybe giving summary, whatever it may be. And I can have that report get sent to a specific recipient. And this is a specific ChurchTrac user, so we'll say it's going to me. And I can say choose a date range, and I can say for maybe the last week. And then I can go ahead and save that action. And then from here I can, under the options, that's when I want this to happen. And so then I can say on the first day of every week maybe. And so on a day of the week, and then I can say every single Monday at 9 a.m. roughly. It just depends on how reports are head, but around 9 a.m. I'm going to get this report automatically emailed to me immediately. So this is so great just because if you have like a team or certain individuals that you need to get reports to on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, maybe your pastor wants to see an overall giving history report, whatever, then you can have the software automatically do that, and you don't have to keep doing it.
Yeah, that way you don't have to jump into the account and constantly run the report, put it in an email, send it off, and they don't have to do that either. No. So you just set this up and it's sent to them, and you don't ever have to think about that again.
Yeah. Now I want to show another automation. This is actually kind of a new feature we created, and it's so great for the giving screen because that's what it was thought of in mind when we created it. So let's create a new automation, Matt.
Okay.
And we're going to name this automation First Time Donor. So depending on your church, now this is just something I'm throwing out there. If you're the type of church that maybe wants to reach out to someone that has donated to your church for the first time and just maybe send them an email or a text or something. So I'm going to say this is a people screen automation.
Yep, because this has to do with a person.
Yeah, and so we'll add this automation. And so now I'm going to add an action. The action is I want an email to go to that person that this has been started for. So send an email. In the email subject, we can just say thank you, whatever.
Something like that for your support.
Yeah. And then hi, and then you can actually have the software input a person's name immediately. So hi, first name, and then whatever you want to say for the body. We're so thankful for your decision to start supporting potential church, whatever. You get the idea. So we have that email, we type it up, we put it in there, save that action, and then we can go ahead and say, all right, when is this happening? Well, I'm going to go ahead and say triggered.
Yeah, instead of a schedule, because that may not be happening all the time.
Yeah.
You select that you want it to be triggered by whenever someone makes a donation for the first time.
Yes. So when someone donates for the first time, they're automatically going to get an email immediately saying, hey, thank you so much for your first time donation, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's why I love this, Matt. This is such a great feature that is for all churches, because I know some churches are like, we don't want to know who gives, and we don't want to like, go down that road. And then other churches are like, hey, I want to know who gives so I can email. What I love about this is all it's doing is saying, hey, this person donated for the first time. It's going to send them a message or perform this certain action. And I think this is just so great because, to be good stewards of our church also means to like be good communicators with our people who are taking that step in faith, donating to our ministry. And so by utilizing the software in automations to do something like reaching out to someone who's donated for the first time and sending them an email, or maybe like adding a tag to that person immediately too, because you could go and add another action and say, you have a tag created for first time donors or whatever it may be. And so I just love that you can really create automations and tasks and things, emails, text messages, you name it. There are so many options and abilities in automations to really just take your stewardship of your church to a whole nother level. So if you can't already tell, I'm pretty passionate about automation, just because it kind of brings all these features that ChurchTrac offers, which I know out there you're like, man, Wes, like that's a lot going on in there. It is, but whenever you start leveraging these advanced features in the software, it just enables us to communicate with our people in a way that we've just never been able to before in the past. And I think when we're able to communicate with our people, at a much higher level, that just not only builds the church that we are at, our local church, it builds the church. And we're able to build the body of Christ beyond. And so that's just awesome. But yeah, that is how we end it right there with automations, just taking we've covered so much. I mean, from starting just of how you enter donations to how you generate those contribution statements and to just end it all up with automations and creating these reports. Now is the time. Let's start answering questions.
Let's do the Q&A. But before we get into the actual Q&A portion, while you're thinking of your questions, or if we didn't answer a question you posted earlier, just copy that and paste it back into the chat. Or if you've been holding on to a question, put that in the chat now. While you're thinking through that and typing that up, we want to remind everybody we have a YouTube channel that we would love for you to subscribe to. Wes will put those links back into the chat again. Go ahead and go to the YouTube channel, subscribe there, just to stay up to date on everything that we're doing there with all the other video content. You can watch this workshop again later, just to review anything and refresh your memory. We also have a Facebook group that we would love for you to join if you're a ChurchTrac user, which most of you are, I'm sure, unless you're just watching this to get a peek under the hood. But we would love for you to join that awesome community of thousands of ministers around the world that would love to answer any questions that you have about ChurchTrac or about anything else. I mean, people ask questions that are not related to ChurchTrac all the time in there just to get some advice or wisdom from other church leaders. Definitely join there.
All right, and I already see some of the questions coming on in, and they're about automations actually.
Okay.
And we see one. I'm trying to get back to the top because we have so many questions coming in. All right, so let's start with Pat. Pat, you're asking if I have 500 people. Whoop, my chat just flew down there.
I have 500 parishioners and half of them do not submit pledge cards. Is there a way to ID these when updating the contributions? So when you say submitting pledge cards, are you talking about when they actually make a donation that they intend to be used toward their pledge, they don't fill out the card? It's up to you to identify, excuse me, it's up to you to identify whether or not a member wants that to be used toward their pledge or not, and then you record that in that contribution screen with that category. If somebody doesn't fill out the paperwork and they don't identify it as something they want to go towards their pledged amount, it's going to be up to that donor and your church to work that out when you record it. However, you can retroactively fix something. If you're on that giving screen and you click on a batch, let's just say Jamie didn't actually want this to go toward her the foreign missions. Maybe that category was selected mistakenly. You can click on that line item on that ledger of all the donations, and in this little menu on the right, you can then select which category you need to select for this, like the correct category, just to make any change. So that's how you correct something retroactively. That's not possible if you've locked the batch, checked everything so that it's all clear and correct. But yes, if something is done incorrectly, like maybe someone wanted a donation to be used toward their pledge and it wasn't recorded as such because they didn't fill out the paperwork, you can go back and make that correction there.
All right, so question from Sharon. I have the same question as Amy. When we're inputting donations, how do we know if the giver pledged? Which I think we kind of showed this earlier, but...
Yeah, you go to the Pledges tab at the very top, you select the current campaign, together really fast, that's why there's only 3 names. But if you've got dozens of people at your church, you'll see a really long ledger of all those people and their pledged amounts and how much you've received so far from those people. Now, if they're keeping track or records of their finances and how much they've given towards the pledge, you can like confer with them about whether or not their records match with yours, and that can help you understand whether or not things have been recorded properly.
All right, Tiffany, why is the category detail by date not available as an automation? I don't know. Ask our support team. They'll let you know.
Well, not only can you ask, but like you can also make a recommendation. That's what's really cool about ChurchTrac is whenever you're in that support ticket, you can actually request a feature, submit a feature request. So you can say, hey, can we please have that report added as an automation?
Yeah.
And we'll pass it on to our developer team just to consider that.
One thing just kind of throwing out there, sometimes if there's features in ChurchTrac and you're like, I don't know why this isn't there, why is it not there? Sometimes it is because we just haven't thought to put it there because we have enough feedback from people. And other times we actually thought about it long and hard and there were reasons why we didn't.
Of course.
And that could be one of those. I know there are some reports churches have asked for in the past, but we haven't offered them just because if those reports get into the wrong hands, it could actually not be good. So like it really just comes down to, if churches are asking for it and stuff, and if it's something we can make happen. Susan, how do you get the email of the first-time donor? So this is a unique question, and I think it requires further explanation on how that automation trigger and automations work with the giving screen.
Yeah, so like for donations, again, you have to have that member's information added to the people screen before you can assign a donation at all. So if they've made a donation for the first time, the assumption is that person's information is on the people screen because you can't record that donation for them until they're there. So there's a few different ways you can get their information on the people screen. You can go to the people screen itself, click that add a name button, and plug that person in manually. That person can also submit their information through Church Connect, whether it be through like creating an account in Church Connect or a new feature that's actually going to come out pretty soon in the near future. So definitely stay tuned for some more ways to add people's information through Church Connect. There's a few different ways to make that happen. But you do have to have a person's information recorded in the people screen before you can record a donation for them in the first place. And hopefully you've got their email from them before they made that donation.
And if they're making that donation online, which typically that's going to be the case for a lot of churches that are focused on first-time donor, although it can happen with just entering a donation for someone for the first time, and then that could trigger an automation. But if they're giving online, they're going to have to provide their email if they're creating an online giving account, which I recommend not enabling the guest giving and simply just limiting it to your actual people that create accounts. But you're going to have their email. And so right from there, you can have that automation in which, if we go back to the automations really quick to point it out, so on the settings screen in ChurchTrac, and then we go to the automations and we have that first-time donor automation that we created. So that's sending an email to them, but I could have another action here, and that action could go to a particular ChurchTrac user. And so one of our leadership at our church, the one at the very top, and then right from here I could configure that, and then it goes ahead and it tells Matt, hey, this is a first-time donor. And then what's so cool about this, and I think as the more you play with this, you're going to see how powerful this is, but Matt just inserted the name right there and their email. So immediately when the system sees that someone donated for the first time and it runs this automation, it's going to send Matt an email now, say, hey, this person donated for the first time. Now, Matt, you don't know how much they donated unless you have the ability, if you're an admin.
Unless I'm the one that entered that.
Yeah, unless you're the admin. But and that's kind of why I love this, because then you can give your pastors the ability to act on something as as important as someone donating for the first time, but they have no idea whether they gave $1 or $10,000. They just know someone donated for the first time to the church, and that's a big step in, you know, being able to see that, okay, this person is buying into what's happening at our church, and we need to invest in them and disciple them and everything, because that's a big step of their discipleship journey.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Patricia said, please repeat the email contribution statement process. I couldn't find it. Absolutely. All you have to do is go to the People and Family screen in ChurchTrac. Even though this has to do with contribution statements, this isn't going to be in the Giving screen, it's in the People screen. Click the Reports tab at the very top. Now there's a lot of different reports you can run in the People screen, but you're already in the correct menu when you first go to the Report screen. Just scroll to the very bottom. You'll find the contribution statement option here. You can print it here just like on the Giving screen, but just select that email option to send it as an email instead. Every family or individual will get their family or individual statement in their inbox and no one else's info. And also you'll get a report letting you know who received that report and who didn't, so you know who to follow up with more personally or more directly.
Shanae, you're asking about, can you go over a deposit batch again? Yes, so when you're using ChurchTrac Accounting in tandem with ChurchTrac Giving, so this is only for those of you who are using the accounting screen, you want to deposit your donations from the Giving screen to the accounting screen for multiple reasons. One, it's a lot easier, and two, it carries all that data for how much goes to each category and everything to your accounting screen, and it's easy. All you do is select the batch date, you select that Actions button in ChurchTrac, and then right there you have the ability to create deposit. And so when you select that Create Deposit button, it gives you the ability to deposit that, and then you can deposit to the specific account that you want that to go to, and then you are done.
Yep.
So
that's all it takes. Very simple and easy. All right, Pat. If I have, we've already answered that one. All right, Luann, we have a couple. Their pledge was posted to the primary member, but the spouse created the online giving through Connect. When I printed quarterly giving statements, the giving posted to the spouse and showing no contribution to the primary member's pledge. Yes. All right. So note our members traditionally pledge as a household, not individuals. Yes. So that is an important thing to keep in mind. Whenever you're creating a pledge campaign, you are entering the names of individuals, not families. So whenever a couple makes a donation toward their pledge, make sure that on the contribution screen, you're selecting the name of the person. Like whenever you're entering their contributions, select the name of the person that was listed on the pledge campaign. If this is going to be something that's kind of confusing, just make sure that the pledge campaign itself, under the Pledges tab, has the name listed of the member of that family that will be handling that and making those donations. So those are the two ways you can do this. If you're recording donations manually, because they give them by check and cash, just make sure you're assigning that donation to whoever you listed on the pledge campaign. But if this is all going to be handled online, just make sure you add the name of the person to the pledge campaign who's making that donation online. That's the way to juggle that.
Jana, you're asking about when I'm adding donations and need to itemize, it would be nice to be able to tab the plus sign. I see what you're saying there. I think a lot of that is really not our software, it's just the limitation of a web browser. Because when you are adding those contributions and Matt selects that tab button, I mean, it's just going to the next field. It's really going to have no way of knowing to add it. And in fact, most people wouldn't want it to do that simply because they want to go to the next field. They don't want it to go and create another itemized section. Correct. So I guess it's just in your use case, maybe it happens a lot, but for a lot of other people, they would never want that. So there's really no way we could make that a thing. But who knows? Maybe one day when standards change with the internet.
Heritage asks, automations? Does an administrator only have automations? Well, it depends. Again, Wes mentioned earlier, it could be that you're on an older version of ChurchTrac and that you need to upgrade. If that's the case, reach out to the support team. It could also be that you just haven't been given user permissions. Like you said, it could be that only like an administrator or someone else at your church has access to that and you don't. Because in the settings screen, you can set like permissions for what users can and cannot access within the account. So it could be that like you have not been given access to the automations feature yet. Reach out to the administrator. If they say that that's not something that they've done, reach out to the support team and make sure you're on our most up-to-date subscription for ChurchTrac. What's next?
Jana, you're asking like why would I need to enter a donation if a person gave online? You don't. It automatically does it.
Yes.
So yeah, there's zero need to enter a donation for a person if they've entered online because it's already going to show up in the giving screen, which I love. Makes life easy.
Yes.
Amy, so we need to offer pledge categories to givers as choices when they use the app. Yes, Amy. So anytime you have a category, because remember, every pledge has its own unique category. So you want to make sure that category is enabled for online giving if you want your people to have the ability to give to that particular one. Now, this is why it's so common where, because I see a lot of churches, and we actually have it with 2024 Pledge Campaign. It's super common for a lot of churches to just create a general pledge campaign that they use for the entire year. My church does it. Church I used to go to, they only have one campaign you can give to, actually. It's kind of funny. And it was just that year's campaign. So yeah, just as you create those, make sure you mark that as used for online giving for that category or subcategory there. All right, next question. A lot of good questions here. I'm trying to make the text bigger just because I've been squinting at the screen long enough and now everything's getting blurry.
Jane asked, when our categories were created, it looks like all titles of budget lines were entered. Should we remove those that cannot be given to? To be perfectly honest, yeah. If it's not something that is a donation category, remove that from the giving screen. But frankly, you can leave those here. It's actually important to have those on the accounting screen if you're using the accounting screen. That's kind of the delineating factor here. You can remove them if you're on the standard subscription because they're kind of not necessary because you're not using the accounting screen. If you are using the accounting feature in ChurchTrac, leave those categories there because they're actually used to track income there, even if it's not a donation category, and they're used for creating the line items of the budget in the budget feature. So that's whether or not you can remove those or should remove those from your account.
All right, Bobby, you have an interesting one I want us to pull up in real time. So go to create a transaction, Matt.
Okay.
When entering contributions by checks, if I just entered one by cash, and then that is what then comes up. When I click on check, I must move backwards to enter the check number. I feel like check number would be, the check.
He's basically making a suggestion to flip these fields.
That's not a bad suggestion at all. I'm going to bring that to our developers a little later. Create a support ticket and give us that suggestion as well. And there may be a reason why our developers made it like that. There typically is, but who knows? Maybe this is something they'll look at and consider.
Patricia said, can you automate the giving statements, say, each quarter? Okay, so on the settings and automations.
I just said but maybe no. Let's double check.
Let's double check that as well. Automations, let's go to that giving report. Right now we have it set for Mondays. Right now, all we can do is on a specific date. You can do it once on that date, so not necessarily every quarter, but once a year, or one day a month. Those are that's the frequency of this. You can't do it every quarter currently.
I would make an argument as why you wouldn't want an automation for every quarter. Because typically when you're dealing with a quarter, you're wanting to make sure all your information is good before it goes out.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want your system automatically sending a quarterly report, by default, if you're still maybe needing to put some things in there and stuff, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh no, it just sent it out and I meant to log in and do everything. And I think that's part of the reason why our developers have it set to not go past a day of a month, just because the last thing you want is because let me tell you, as you get going with automations, you will start using a lot. And that list, we only have 3 on here right now. I work with a lot of churches that have 30. And so as you start getting a long list of automations, it can get really quick. It can happen really fast where you start forgetting, certain automations you have. And then before you know it, you've got 3 automations running, monthly and you didn't realize it. So it's always good. That search bar is actually really nice because you can search your automations as you start creating a ton of automations.
Yes.
And make sure that you're not creating a duplicate automation and sending out a report 3 times to your people that you already have going on.
All right, Christina asked, how do we give through Venmo? Well, just like normal, there's nothing different now that you've switched over to ChurchTrac and set up Stripe. You can continue taking donations like normal through Venmo. The only difference is Stripe is the only merchant processor that we directly integrate with, meaning those donations through that portal are the only ones that will automatically be recorded on your ChurchTrac account. Venmo donations, you'll have to record as if they're like cash or check donations. So you just create you create that batch, you click that add contributions button and plug them in by hand, like you would if they gave in person rather than through Venmo.
And just a quick, just something I've noticed in years of working with churches, I find that churches that have a really solid donor base and not necessarily donor base and the people donating, but just like a solid like system in place, and they've really got things ironed out. They don't have multiple ways for their people to give, like through all these different platforms. When you have, like I've worked with a lot of churches that are using Venmo and Zelle and Cash App, and then they have PayPal, and then they're using Tidely. That's so much complexity. That's a lot to keep track of.
Yep.
And every single one of those platforms is an opportunity. You had said this the other day. It's a opportunity of.
It expands your attack surface? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, it expands your attack surface, and
for like hackers and scammers and spammers.
Yes, especially when you start talking about Zelle, because that's another conversation for another day.
We've got a whole video on that one.
Yeah. And so, and it's not that we're trying to push you towards ChurchTrac Online Giving. Number one, because we don't make any money on it. FYI, we make $0 on ChurchTrac Online Giving. That's just an integration we offer through Stripe. The reason we really stress just trying to solidify all your donations through one unified platform is that it just makes your life a lot easier for reporting. It makes it a lot easier for your donors because they don't have to like wonder where they need to give to. They just know, hey, here's the link, here's where I give, done. So it just makes it easy for you and your donors when you don't have tons of different platforms to give to.
Yep. Kathy asked, does the deposit give a bulk total or individual postings? It's a bulk total. I can actually show you on the accounting screen in ChurchTrac because I deposited that batch earlier from the giving screen. So if I go to the accounting screen, click on the checking account because that's the account that I deposited to, there's that deposit right there. Giving deposit, multiple categories, $1,634. If I open up this transaction, you'll see the two categories. There's a general fund and a little bit was given to the missions fund as well, but no names. It doesn't retain the name information as you deposit from the giving screen to the accounting screen, just the categories and the totals. This way, you can give your pastor access to the accounting screen and they still won't know who made a donation or exactly how much they gave. So you can give them access to what they need and not what they don't need in ChurchTrac.
Now I want to interrupt this commercial for an important announcement. I just dropped the link in the chat. We are having our accounting masterclass next week. This one, I think we're going to have a few hundred people in.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be popping.
We will have a dedicated time of Q&A just like we're doing right now in that accounting masterclass. So be sure to join us for that one. We're not going to go into how to set up accounting because really we've got better videos that are going to go deep into that and show you step by step. This is more just like using it at a higher level. And this is what I think is going to be so great about this for people who want to use it at a high level, but also people who are just getting started, is it's going to help you kind of quick start into really knowing all the cool stuff you can do with the accounting screen, and save you a lot of time. So that hour-ish of your life to join that live stream next week is probably going to save you 5 hours of your life in just trying to figure it out on your own. As easy as ChurchTrac is to use, I can tell you, like that live stream, we're going to cover so many great things that are just going to be multiple light bulb moments for you.
Yes. Shanae said, just signed up. Wonderful. Nice. We're excited. Kathy asked, when they post online and it automatically posts, is this a batch that I would lock or whatever that is called? Yes. The way it works with Stripe is Stripe collects the donations from your donors and holds them in like a little holding pattern. It's automatically deposited to your church's bank account within, I think it's like 24 hours. You also can set that, I think, on the Stripe side, exactly how long you want them to hold on to it. And it's also deposited or reported to your ChurchTrac account in one batch. So yeah, all online donations will be listed on your ChurchTrac account as its own unique batch, and you can lock that. That way it's not changed retroactively in the future. So Patricia, this isn't to the individuals. I don't remember what that was referring to. Shanae, should everyone have the ability to add the type of donation? I don't see that. I'm on a plan that includes accounting.
I know exactly what they're talking about.
What is it?
So go to settings in ChurchTrac. And this is, I kind of breezed over this earlier, didn't make a special note, but I need to make special note of this. So admin settings.
Oh, admin
so settings,
okay.
and then admin settings, and then you go to the,
screen options?
Screen options, yeah.
Okay.
My eyes are failing me today. And then accounting. I'm sorry, giving. I'm thinking about accounting next week.
Yeah.
So everyone, if Matt's going to zoom in where it says see show giving type selection box, so that may be disabled for your account. So just make sure you enable that, so that way you can actually have those different types of givings, whether it's cash or check. I actually have no idea why we even have this as an option, if I'm being honest. I'm going to ask our developers later, because I'm just kind of curious, because most churches that I've worked with, they want to either designate check or cash or something like that. But yeah, so that's where you do that.
Liz asked, when adding checks, should you put the date of the check written or just create a batch with the actual date you are adding to ChurchTrac? I'm thinking of individual giving reports. Makes sense? Let me read that again. When adding checks, should you put the date of the check written? Oh yeah, no, you would enter that donation within the date that you received the donation, not what's written on the check. So, so if you're...
He's thinking.
Yeah, there's a unique scenario when, like if a donation is mailed to a church at the end of the year, there's that question of like, do you assign it to the prior year or to this current year? But like the donation, it should be counted for the post date, like whatever post date is on that check that was mailed in. So that's the date that you would add to the contribution statement, which should be like the same day or like the day prior, and that's usually it, because it's just a local.
We need to do like
local check.
We probably need to do like a video just on those nuances of like end of year donations and like when does it apply, when does it not apply, and stuff. Because I've seen a lot of questions over the years, just churches that are like, what if it's like an ACH donation and it was made like the day after the New Year, but they really wanted it, like just stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Well, if it's made the day after, it's made the day.
Yeah,
it's too late.
Is, yeah.
I can
tell
you that now. All right. Nancy said it would be great to be able to set automations for every other week as well. Okay, yeah, make that suggestion. That's great, especially in the accounting area for things like payroll. Yeah, perfect. That's a great idea, Nancy. Thank you very much for that suggestion. Put that in a support ticket so we have it in writing, and we'll definitely consider that. That's smart.
Although I would say you could just create an automation that happens on a certain day of the month and then another automation that happens on a certain day. It's kind of a roundabout way to do it, but you can do it. It's just you'd need to create two automations.
Yep. Madeline Rivera, when I'm entering online deposits from MoGive, do I assign that as ACH deposit or another way? I'm not sure what MoGive is.
MoGive?
Yeah, so I don't know.
Wouldn't it be like
that question.
give more, not MoGive?
All right. Let's see. Kathy, does it post to the individuals when it comes from online? Yes. Donations online are assigned to the individual that made that donation. Now, whenever you produce a contribution statement, you can choose to generate that statement for families or for individuals. So if a married couple makes a donation, the husband sometimes gives and the wife sometimes gives, their statement will reflect both of those in one statement. So that's that. But yeah, if you're doing pledge campaigns, you need to make sure that the person listed in the pledge campaign itself on ChurchTrac is the one making the donations towards that pledge. Just keep your married couples aware of that. Let's see. Janabeth said, yes, please make a video for end of year donations. Yeah, okay. All right, we're getting a consensus here, Wes. We got to do it. We'll put it on the docket.
How to handle end of year donations, and we can cover all the nuances. That'd be a fun one.
Yep. All right, it looks like we've actually caught all the way up. Nancy has a little comment, though. Automations on the 1st and 15th isn't the same as every other week, Wes.
Yeah, I was commenting, and then
Wes is like, I realized that the moment it left my mouth.
I try not to say things, and regret them, and that was one of those situations. As soon as I said it, I was like, actually, 2 automations wouldn't work in that scenario, but okay. Well, this was fun, Matt.
This was a lot of fun.
We covered, everything from the setup to how to record donations, managing your pledges, some of the pro tips along the way. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and all the little nuanced things that go beyond.
Yeah, and answered a ton of questions along the way too. If you have any further questions once this is over with, reach out to the support team by clicking that orange help button in your ChurchTrac account. If you're like me, I always think of like 3 questions I wished I had asked. So reach out to the support team. They're super fast. They love helping you out. So reach out to them. It's completely free to get the help that you need. And again, subscribe to YouTube, join that Facebook group just to stay in touch with everybody and get your questions answered in those other ways as well. I hope you learned something. I hope you got something out of this. Hope you have a blessed day.